important to say histamine's not the bad guy. Histamine I I've been doing this for 16 years. I started before the internet was anything really, and now we're here, and that's great. But I say that to say I've seen a lot of cycles where we make things into bad guys, like estrogen, like cholesterol, like fat,
Course, all of
and
it.
and it was never that way. And so our brains wanna be black and white about things, and the truth is most everything is gray. And so histamine is not your enemy. The issue is when there's too much of it hanging around.
Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics Raw, Real, Relatable podcast. I'm your host, Susan Robbins, epigenetic human performance coach. This is where we discuss all things lifestyle, environment, food, exercise, work, mind, and social interaction as they pertain to epigenetic expression in a way that's relatable to everyone. So if you're ready to start viewing you as an individual, take control of your life and health, and get results, buckle up, here we go. Welcome to the Everyday Epigenetics Raw, Real, Relatable podcast. I am back solo as your host. This is my first one by myself again, so bear with me as I get back into the groove of doing this on my own again. And I think today if you or someone you know has histamine issues, and this seems like it has gone through the roof with the amount of people that are experiencing histamine issues. And this doesn't mean like just an allergy to peanuts or something like that. I'm going to give you a definition of histamine, and my guest is going to talk about the histamine connection to gut. I think you're really going to enjoy this podcast today because it's going to be chock full of information. My guest is Steven Wright. I actually heard him on another podcast, and I was glued to it. And I said, I want to try to get him on this program because I suffer from histamine issues. And we'll talk about some of the things that increase your risk for histamine issues, several of which I have, including genetic predisposition. My former co-host, Kate, she also had them. And I have many clients that deal with histamine issues. And we're all looking for answers. And Stephen is going to, like I said, he's just going to come from a different area than most of the people I've heard on podcasts just talking about basics on histamine. Steven Wright is a health engineer. Kalish, is it Kalish or Kalish?
Kalish.
Kalish, okay. Kalish, Functional Medicine Institute graduate and gut health specialist. Since 2009, he's been researching, writing, and building products around gut, brain, and immune-related issues. He's overcome a host of gut, brain, and immune issues himself and uses these painful and challenging experiences to help others. He's the co-founder of healthygut.com and another fantastic Colorado connection. He is down in Boulder with his wife, Shay, and their two dogs. And I just laughed. I said, I'm still a little bit keyed up. I am true Colorado form. I just hiked 6-mile trail up over 11,000 feet to a lake, rushed back, and got ready and hopped online. So this is Colorado living, what we do here. And I'm just very excited to have you on, Stephen. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Susan. I'm excited for this.
So I think with a lot of us that go into holistic health and wellness, we come from having issues ourselves because we're looking for answers. And tell us a bit, let's start with, before we get into histamine itself, let's talk a bit about what your journey was. Everybody on here has heard my journey and then some. So I'd love to hear what brought you into this craziness of histamine and gut and brain.
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. The longer version's a couple hours, but I've had issues, gut issues, my entire life. I come from a family history of IBS, and even in my extended family at a party when I was in high school, I was nicknamed Gas Man, which is when you get the award for the gassiest person in your entire family, that tells you something.
Yes.
And so I've had issues. There's all kinds of risk factors for me, but I've had issues kind of my whole life. They got worse after college. I went to college for electrical engineering. It was a very intense school, a lot of beer, pizza, studying, stress. And when I graduated, I was very heavy. I still had exercise-induced asthma. I still had adult cystic acne. I had even more gut problems than I'd ever had. And around a year later, I had quote unquote my dream job in Chicago. I was working for a big four accounting firm up in a high rise in Chicago. And if you've ever been in those buildings, depending on the size of the building, there's only one bathroom per floor. And if that bathroom is blocked, or if you can't make it in time, or if you're just literally having bloating that would make you cry after every meal, like what I was having, there's no way to like always get there. And so I was intermitting. This is 2008. I'm intermittent fasting. I'm doing cold exposure. I'm doing stuff that people haven't even heard of. It's only going to
Wow.
be cool
No.
for a while. And I'm losing the weight, but I'm not really losing it as much as I want. I'm also suffering my first panic attacks and major depressive episodes. And literally every meal, whether I eat salad and chicken or I go out with a client for burgers and beers, I literally swell up and I have like painful knife stabbing pains in my gut from the bloating and gas that's inside of me. And if you have visceral hypersensitivity, IBS, like what I had, that's a subset of IBS, somewhere around 20 to 30%, maybe a little higher. The statistics aren't really perfect yet on that. Basically, everybody else has bloating and it sucks, but you don't feel these knives in your gut. And those of us with VS do. And so I would basically crop dust my coworkers every day, and they had enough of it, and so they told my boss. And one day on Friday, I got called in, and he was like, "Look, you're the stinky guy, and you got to get this figured out." And so now, the pain. The thing about us humans is we never change until the pain is great enough. It doesn't matter what it is. It
True.
doesn't matter if it's your finances, your health, your relationships. You will not change until the pain is great enough. So I figured at this point, I had a I had enough health problems. I was in enough pain. I was having accidents on commuter buses and canceling dates and up all
Mhm.
night. And so, anyways, I went into Western medical offices in Chicago, didn't really get any answers. I was told I could have antibiotics, I should eat more whole grains and have Metamucil. This was again 2008, 2009. I thought I was supposed to suck it up. And obviously, sucking it up until this point hadn't gotten me anywhere. And a few more embarrassing episodes later, I finally had enough. And I called a buddy of mine who had celiac disease. And he said, "Look, the gluten free diet didn't work for me, but I found this other diet from this naturopathic physician. It was called the specific carbohydrate diet. And I did it. It's really restrictive, it's very complex. But I tell you what, my diarrhea stopped when the gluten-free diet didn't work." And
Wow.
I kicked that diet off, and I didn't have any. I could make chicken, I could make pizza, toast. I didn't have any cooking skills. I didn't really have anything, and I just kicked it off. And within the first 7 days, probably 50% of my bloating was gone, and that just tripped
That's
a
huge.
a switch inside of me that was like about getting my power back. I was now very angry and very embarrassed, and like I had some power, and I was like, "This is crazy. If I could do this with food, what else?" And so I got on all the listservs. I started combing the bowels of the forums of the internet, and quickly found out about
Unintended.
yeah, all kinds of things. Quickly found out about a lot of things that didn't work, but also found supplements that I still take today, like digestive enzymes and betaine HCl, and they immediately kept getting better. And so as I got better, I felt angry, like I wanted to tell the world about this. So I started blogging about my experiences in 2009, wrote some books with my co-founder Jordan, who was the guy who told me about the diet, and we were all about nutrition. We were all about basically what we would call elimination diets these days, but the specific carbohydrate diet actually predates all this stuff that's happening now. It comes from the 1920s. I had a host of issues, right? I had a bunch of functional medicine issues. I ended up going to functional medicine school with Dr. Dan Kalish. We had a clinic for a little while from 2013 to 2015, where we saw like tons and tons of the toughest cases in the world at the time. And along the way, I've just been slowly continuing to go down rabbit holes because I love a miracle. I love a good story. I love a new product. And fast forward many years later, I got really mad once I was in clinic when I saw that a lot of what happens in the supplement world is mostly marketing. The supplement companies, the ingredient companies, they study things that make no sense. Bioavailability. Bioavailability really doesn't really matter for that many things. A lot of other things matter, but just making claims where there's marketing potential does not equal results for humans in the real world. And so when I learned that, it just added further fuel to my fire of there's got to be better ways to formulate. There's got to be better ways to do this because I have a mountain of product that didn't work. And I'm sure everybody has a pile of product that didn't work. And I would like to change that. And so that's how we're at the Healthy Gut today.
The supplement graveyard
Yeah.
is what we have, and it's literally you can put thousands of dollars into a supplement graveyard. I've heard
Yeah.
some clients come to me and they're like, "I wanna do DNA. I wanna understand what should I actually be taking and not taking?" Because and I'll ask in a consult, "Well, why are you taking this?" "I don't know, I heard it was good." But how much money are you out there throwing away and not getting the things that you actually need just because they read something, "This might be good." We're all so different in how we react. 20 to 30% of people, that's a lot.
Yeah. Of the people with IBS. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yep.
Now, are you celiac? Did you ever find out if you have any of those issues? It was
Nope. I'm non-celiac gluten sensitive.
okay, okay. So, let's start talking a bit a couple things I'm gonna bring up first. When I looked on your website, and I'm trying some of Steven's products, actually, there's a couple things that really stuck out to me, and the one quote on his About Us page was, "Mind, body, and consciousness are all systems of systems. Everything is connected. What you eat, what you think, what you believe, what happens to you, what grows in you, what happened to your grandmother all matters." And there we have epigenetics, microbiome, autonomic nervous system, and the brain. And I think you had it down as patterns in the brain. Basically, probably habits that we need to kick before the pain gets to being so bad, right? And what's interesting, Stephen, is I actually can relate to you. I am celiac, but I didn't know. And when I was in Aurora's Police Academy in '02, I was having a lot of same issues as you and never knew why. And here I was bringing for lunch like sandwiches, like all of these things I had no idea. And we'd be out, go do a 5-mile run. Like, where's the bathroom? And the pain in the gut is brutal. So I can relate to that so clearly. And yeah, I'll have to tell you off I'll have to tell you offline about a couple of things that happened to me. I'm not ready to divulge that with the audience yet. But I totally get it. And it you're looking for answers. You're trying the things like, what's wrong? People make fun of you and something's not right, but what do you do? Tell me a bit about let's give the definition of histamine. And I'm going to give the layman's definition because this is relatable to the everyday person. So, histamine, and I even went on to say, what's the layman's version so that I don't confuse anybody? It's a compound that's released by cells in response to injury, allergic reactions, and also inflammatory reactions. And so it also plays a big role in the immune system. They say it kind of acts like a neurotransmitter, but it also plays a big part in regulating cognitive function and also sleep and wake regulation. And if you're having issues sleeping, that can be a symptom of too much histamine, and people don't like they don't look at that as being a problem. It's let me take another sleeping pill to try to get some sleep when it could absolutely be something that they're reacting to. And it increases gastric acid secretion. So like acid reflux, people don't realize that that is a symptom. They just think of it as getting stuffy or getting hives. And there's so many more things, so many more symptoms with histamine. Do you wanna elaborate a little on that
Yeah,
and then
sure.
kinda
So,
go
I mean,
into the connection
I
with the
think it's
gut?
important to say histamine's not the bad guy. Histamine I I've been doing this for 16 years. I started before the internet was anything really, and now we're here, and that's great. But I say that to say I've seen a lot of cycles where we make things into bad guys, like estrogen, like cholesterol, like fat,
Cholesterol, all of
and
it.
it was never that way. And so our brains wanna be black and white about things, and the truth is most everything is gray. And so histamine is not your enemy. The issue is when there's too much of it hanging around. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of conditions that are related to it, and that's because we have histamine receptors in every area of the body. So our mast cells release histamine. I like to think of it just as like a chemical messenger, and it can go to the brain, it can go to the heart, it can go to the blood vessels. That's why some of the common side effects of too much histamine are like tachycardia, racing, flushing of the cheeks,
Stuffy
nasal
nose.
yeah, nasal related stuff. But
Mhm.
again, you still need histamine to make proper stomach acid. You still need histamine to have a proper immune functioning system. And so it's when we have too much of it or we're not breaking it down properly, either of those could be the condition. That's when the real issue crops up. And that, like you said, because there's H receptors, H1 through 4 receptors everywhere in the body, that literally could be almost anything. Common things that people don't realize are car sickness or motion sickness. That's too much histamine. Literally, Dramamine is an antihistamine. Things like migraines are highly correlated to too much histamine. There's also things where there's a pathway to ADHD and focus. There's, as you said, insomnia and histamine dumping. Sometimes around 8 to 9 p.m. is one of the times when it dumps the worst. And so if you're like so sleepy and then you try to go to bed and like suddenly you're like bam back awake like around 9:30, that could be histamine dumping and you're not having enough of the enzymes to clear that histamine dump. And so then you're back awake and you're like, "Ugh, why am I here?" It also is often an issue for people who have been on this journey for a while and they're trying all different types of food diets, like different elimination diets. They're like, now I'm first I was paleo, now I'm autoimmune paleo, now I'm low FODMAP, autoimmune paleo. Now I'm gonna go low hist. It's whoa, like it's not the food's problem, but histamine does overlap with IBS. It overlaps with almost all these
It
conditions.
does.
It was a silent issue for me for a long time that I didn't quite realize, and I don't have it that bad, but now that I'm healthy enough, it's just annoying enough that I'm like, "Oh, yeah, look at this. I got a histamine issue at a low level." But it gets worse, right? I run a company. It's very stressful in the world we live in to run a company that makes products and tries to ship them all over the world. I have a family. I try to be healthy, but I don't have the best genetics. I really don't. I had a a card too short of a poker hand to start life off. And so I'm always going to be dealing and working my best to be with this crazy world that we've created. And so I just want people to know you said something interesting in the opening there where you said you mentioned how everything's connected and there's so many rabbit holes to health to go down and it can be overwhelming at times.
Boy.
One thing I'll say for people is just try on an idea for 60 days. Go all in on something and just make a lot of changes, whether that's your epigenetics or histamine or whatever it might be, because you'll gain something. You'll learn. If you just listen to podcasts and you never try the products, if you never try the protocols, you don't know anything. You think you know, but you have
Huh.
no clue. You only really learn when you actually force your body to adapt either through a supplement or a new routine or something. And as you do that, you'll uncover things like I uncovered, hey, histamine actually matters for me.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you, and I think there's 2 things. I think there's the people that are like, "This is gonna be too difficult. I'm not gonna do anything." They're just gonna keep listening and taking in more information. They're your big learners. And then you have the others that are so fed up going, "I've tried every freaking thing under the sun, and nothing has worked, and I don't know what it is." And, the great thing I think about learning about this is creating awareness when you start putting things into practice. You see how does your because we're all so different, and that's what I preach on this program and have since I started it, is that we're all so different. So I'll see on Facebook pages, like it might be specific to MTHFR, a histamine page. What should I take for this? And I'm the only one in there going, I don't know, because you're not like everybody else, but and that's a lot of the times why things don't work because everybody's trying to do the same thing. But how do you know how your body responds unless you try? And that's the thing. And I, I like you, just it was funny. This was probably 4 years ago now, and I'm working with a client. She said, I'm itching all the time. And we do her DNA, and she comes up having issues with the AOC1 genes, and they're the ones around DAO. DAO, everybody, is the enzyme that breaks down the histamine in foods. And
So there's definite issues with production there and activity. And I said, I wonder if it's histamine thing. And I think she had I think MTHFR had a couple of variants in there, and that can increase histamine sensitivity as well, or histamine intolerance. So as we're as we're looking, I literally was sitting here in a Zoom call, and I was itching so badly. And it's all for me, it's shoulders, right? And all puffy in the eyes and stuffy. And I said, "All right, let's talk about it. Let me look at what are the foods that are high in histamine. Spinach, avocados, tomatoes." The both of us were eating those daily. I said, "I think you have a histamine issue. Wait a minute, I think I might have a histamine issue." And that's when I started delving into this more. And like you said, it's when there's too much. So we have that histamine bucket, and we have the ability to break some down, and then when it gets to be too much, so maybe you're eating these foods or getting exposure, or you have some conditions that exacerbate the histamine sensitivity itself. There's also Hashimoto's is another factor. I worked with a thyroid hormone specialist for 2.5 years and saw that a lot with her people. And that bucket just keeps getting more full, and your body's going, "Yeah, I'm not breaking that down." And then the reactions start. And for some, it might be, "I can eat an avocado now. I'll go, no issue." If I were to eat an avocado 3 days in a row, my eyes are gonna puff up, or I'm itching nonstop. So I think it's just awareness around that. This is what my body does. And people look at things like eliminations, like a histamine diet, or like the diet that you did, the specific carbohydrate, as another thing I have to cut out. But it really does allow you to see how you react. And I think that's, again, just gaining awareness around your body, your mind, because the mind's playing a part here, the gut brain connection. And I think that's huge. So talk a bit about, what was the other thing you said that shocked me? The Dramamine. Is it I heard you say that on that other podcast. I was just as shocked the second time I heard it,
Yeah.
that that's a histamine reaction, the car sickness
Yep.
or motion sickness.
Yep. Motion sickness, car sickness. Yep. Boat sickness. All versions of too much histamine. So yeah, the complex thing about histamine is certain foods, like if you anybody can Google a list of high histamine foods, and usually on in general, the more delicious the food, the more likely that it's higher in histamine. So things like wine, cheese,
Chocolate.
chocolate, even like you said, these like weird things like eggplant, tomato, avocado can be very high in histamine. And if it's fermented, so vinegars, if it's wine, beer, anything that's fermented is out. That means all fermented foods. And so
Kimchi.
yeah, anything that's
Yogurt.
fermented. I think what can be really helpful is doing it for 7 to 10 days as a way to essentially test the theory.
Mhm.
My issue with elimination diets over the years is that they just don't play out in the real world. Like you're never gonna be low histamine for life, and I don't want you to because food is not just nutrition. Food is also love, connection, community. Like food is a lot of different nutrients that are not nutrients. And so my whole thing at this point in my career is how do we food is not medicine. Let's just throw that out. It's not medicine. It's very important, but it's not medicine. Food is powerful, but we have tools that allow us to handle food differently. And so we can talk more about diamine oxidase, DAO, and how you can eat these higher histamine foods. Number one, the healthier you get, the less histamine you're going to release
Yep.
subject to your world. So if you have seasonal allergies, you have a histamine problem. Let's just say that out loud. You have an improper release of histamine in relation to your environment. If you have a mold issue, you're highly sensitive to mold, you have a histamine problem. You have an improper release. Like mold is everywhere. If you have a house
It
plant, you have
is.
mold. You cannot get rid of it. Now, there are cases where you have a leak behind the wall, you have visible mold growth. You're going to have to remediate that because it is going to make you sick. And once you're sensitized to mold, it becomes a bigger and bigger issue. But the idea you can live a mold-free life is asinine. It's ridiculous. It's not possible. But there's things we can do to deal with mold and the histamine component. There's things we can do and deal with, say, eating fermented foods when you're when you're sick and you're trying to figure it out, right? Like you're not really sure. I have some gut issues. I got some epigenetic issues. I got some energy issues, some brain issues. There's things we can do to not be suffering and not be in this, oh, poor me, I'm never gonna be able to eat the good stuff again. That doesn't have to be the way. But we do need to evolve the thinking and use tools and not get attached to those tools. And I think that's where we could talk a little bit more about how histamine's like really an equation. It is like you have DAO, which breaks down histamine outside of your cells, and you have HNMT, which breaks down histamine inside your cells. And you make histamine in response to everything, like I said. You mentioned the nervous system. If you're sympathetic dominant, like I am, it may have happened to you, like it happened to me as an infant. There's nothing I could do about this. This is just how I'm wired. But my entire life, I need to be vigilant about taking care of myself because as I'm a hedonist. As soon as I go on vacation, I lose all my routines and all my practices, and I'm like, "Yeah, we're doing whatever." And then
Yeah.
by the end of vacation, I'm like so stuffy, I'm sneezing, and it's because my nervous system, yeah, I had some breath of fresh air and I got some fun vibes, but also I wasn't doing the things that keep me regulated. And when I'm not regulated, I make more histamine. And so it's histamine is this really frustrating thing where almost anything can trigger it. But if you take a little bit of time, a couple weeks, a couple months to dig into this, you can figure out where your genetic or your lifestyle weak points are. And then you can learn about the tools like DAO supplementation, other mast cell supplements to help you essentially tolerate the world better and enjoy yourself while you continue to get healthier.
Can you, because you brought up the mast cells, can you talk about the difference between the mast cell activation and the histamine?
Sure. Pretty much everything in health, people want it to be black or white, but it's always like a scale of grayness. So people will say, "Hey, how do you help constipation?" And I'm like, "What kind of constipated are you? Are you poop every 3 days constipated, or are you stuck on enemas and you can't go naturally ever? Or do you just poop like every 2 weeks?" Because I've helped people like all over the spectrum. And so what I would say about histamine intolerance and mast cell activation is basically there's like mild histamine intolerance, which is probably what I have. Then there's more and more histamine intolerant where you legitimately feel better when you cut out vinegar and tomatoes and avocados and fermented everything and you just fish, you cut out all fish. You literally are like immediately feeling better next week. That's
Hmm.
pretty histamine intolerant. And then
Yeah.
mast cell activation is when you tip over into this new spectrum where you're reacting to everything. And where is that line in the sand? You can there are some like checklists out there, but there's not a super easy way to take a diagnostic test to know this. It's one of the most frustrating areas about health at the moment is that number one, checking for histamine intolerance is there's not a simple blood test, there's not a simple scale, and then mast cell activation, there's not like a just a go no go. Yes, you have it like
Hmm.
celiac. It's a
Yeah.
spectrum. But I would say essentially mast cell activation is where your mast cells become improperly attuned to everything. So they are haywire to everything. This includes pets, dander, paint, mold, food, and you're the worst cases of mast cell activation that I've seen and interacted with. These people cannot even take curcumin. They cannot take omegas. They are so reactive to their food that they're probably on 5 foods and they can't even take supplements. They have to literally, the number one thing for them to do is focus on their nervous system. They first have to really make progress with their nervous system to feel safe again, and then that will downregulate the histamine response for their mast cells, and then they can start taking things like histoharmony or other mast cell stabilizers and continue to work up. And those people on the mast cell activation side, they do have to be on the low histamine diet to feel okay because they're the
Yeah.
people that if they eat the wrong thing, they'll be on the couch with tachycardia, wondering if they should call an ambulance. That's how bad it can get from like a strawberry. There's a
Mm.
scale there, right? You can still have a version of mast cell activation where you are reactive to a lot of things and you're using a lot of coping mechanisms where you could just say, "Hey, I might be on that spectrum." The cool thing is basically the treatment plans are very universal to wherever you are in that treatment plan. Start with your nervous system. Number 1, cut out
Yep.
the worst histamine foods. number 1B. And we'll keep going through some other ideas here, but that's how I would lay it out. People like to get a little more technical than that, but some of the research I've seen is very conflicting about uh,
It is.
which lab test to get, if it really matters. So at this point in time, I'm like, it's really your call in a symptom checklist.
I totally agree with you. And I wanted to do the whole blood histamine, which was supposed to give an indication of methylation. If you're high, if you came up really high, you were probably methylating a bit. If you came up very low, you could potentially be over methylating. You wanted to be in that middle normal range. And this was several years ago when I actually found DNA, and that was 2019 at the Paleo FX conference, and never looked back. And I was a hot mess at the time. And the first thing when I went to have this whole blood histamine done, they did the plasma histamine test. And I said, no, it specifically needed to be the whole blood. And from what I read, they said the plasma histamine, again, I don't know if this is true. There's so much information out there. I just don't know that the plasma histamine was more looking at MCAS, the mast cell. So I didn't get that done, but I generally think that's probably what I was dealing with as well. I because I can remember just sitting and I would get the fish from the store, not frozen or let it defrost, right? And I'd eat, and then I'm sitting in my chair watching TV, and all of a sudden, like, the heart rate's going boom, 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 and you feel it. You're like, "What? Where did this come from?" And I guarantee you, nobody sits and thinks, "Oh, maybe I need to look at my central nervous system," because everybody thinks of stress as just a big event that happens that, quote, "stresses you out." But it's these everyday things. We might be living in a bad relationship on a day-to-day basis. We might be in a job we hate, in a climate that goes against our natural wants, right? Or how we react well in climates or not. It could be anything that is just creating these levels of stress in our body that we don't think of up here, but our body's reacting to it all the time. And so I love that you said start with the central nervous system, breath work. And these are things you can do for free. Breath work costs nothing. Journaling maybe cost you $2 to go get a journal, right? But these things that to start calming, because again, like I had mentioned, it does act like a neurotransmitter. And so you want to bring that calm in. Anything stimulating the vagus nerve, hugely important. And I do want to mention the fish really quickly because it's such a huge, especially like salmon and cod, your good fatty fish for the omegas. I have found that I do not react now if I got an air fryer. It's the best thing ever. And so I tell my clients, get an air fryer. Get your fish, a good quality fish. I just got some from Butcher Box, the salmon and the cod. And I take it right from frozen into the air fryer, put the olive oil on it and the seasoning, and in 15 minutes, it's perfect. And I don't react. But if you leave fish sitting out or you get fish from the fish counter, I eat it and it's like you feel it. You start to get the stuffy. I'm not even enjoying my dinner because I'm stuffed up. But so just little things like that. Like you said, the highest histamine foods. Another one is citrus. How many people are doing lemon water all the time? Because it's great. But if you have histamine issues or eating yogurt every day or kimchi, all these fermented things that are supposed to be so good for the gut, but if you have a histamine issue going, you could be exacerbating that. And you just don't want to do that on a day-to-day basis. So I think those are great tips that you gave there. So talk about, because you have a DAO supplement. I've used DAO supplements in the past. And again, this is going to help to break down that histamine. So talk about the one that you have, because that's one I have not tried yet. I'm using, what did I just try? The
Okay.
Tributerin X. Just started on that. So if you want to talk on some of what you offer, because people are moving through this, I think the products are fantastic because you start to feel human again. I can eat this. I can put lemon in this water and like actually enjoy this and not have a miserable experience and be itching or stuffy or hives or whatever your case is. So talk a bit on what you do have. I don't promote products on here, but when there's something good, I'm all about it. And I think that these are things that people need to hear. Because I also have a client using yours. And let me just tell you this. She's also a PH360 coach. That's that AI-based platform I was telling you. And she's taking your gut class actually right now. But she said, I sent her the podcast you did where I found you because she's having some issues. So I said, there's histamine involved here. And genetically, like everything lined up. And so she's doing the tributyrin, the holoimmune. I don't know if she's doing the DAO, but she said that she's going regularly now. She's been able to lose weight better. All her gut irritation and the issues she was having around the histamine have really dialed back. And so that's why I'm happy to promote, because if people are seeing results, there's a reason for that. Talk a bit about these because I'd never actually heard of tributyrin
Sure.
until your podcast.
Cool. Well, we'll cover DIO first and then tributyrin. So diamine oxidase DIO is a brush border enzyme. So it is made and released inside of your small intestine. And I think it's 15 to 25% potentially of people have a genetic SNP that likely means they're going to make less DAO than the rest of us. And so again, if you've been pulling your hair out, you've been doing everything right, and you're still behind the 8 ball, there are some genetic things that you may just have to supplement for life with. And you can take DAO in supplement form, and it's been on the market for years. I don't know if it's decades, but I've been aware of it for over 10 years. My issue has been that I've tried it, and I tried it with clients back when I was seeing people, and the results were just extraordinarily inconsistent. And if it worked, it seemed like people had to take like a massive amount of the bottle, like way, way, way more, like 8, 10 times the serving size to get any benefit. And that just means to me that either the product doesn't work or the supplement companies aren't building it right or something. And so I didn't talk about DAO publicly because to me, there wasn't anything to talk about. It was just not really a good option. Then I came across a Spanish company that's been working for the last 10 years. They have worldwide patents on extracting DAO in a better way and keeping it preserved in a better way. And one of the ways is with an enteric coating. Enteric just basically means stomach proof, stomach acid proof. And they did a study where they looked at basically every product on the market and their label claim and how much DAO was actually present. And they published it because basically there was like 2 companies that had like about 50% of the activity units and the rest of the companies had almost 0. And without a
Wow.
doubt, the research says you cannot take pig kidney or beef kidney and get DAO. There's no DAO in those organ products. Don't even take them for
Really?
oh, yeah, take them for, like, vitamins and nutrients, but do not take them for DAO. There's no DAO in there. It part of the reason is DAO is extraordinarily heat and oxygen sensitive, and so you can't just have an organ ground up and assume it's been protected from heat and oxygen. And so you have to really protect the molecule, otherwise it breaks down and goes away. And so potentially that's what's happened with these other products. Maybe they were fine when they left the manufacturing plant, but if you open up the bottle and it's exposed to air too much or it's exposed to too much heat or something, it could break down. Or maybe they're just not doing it properly. But in general, I think the study suggests what I found as a clinician and what I saw in the reviews in the marketplace, which is that a lot of people want this product to work, but the inconsistency was an issue. And so HistaHarmony is our version of solving that. So we partnered with the Spanish scientists. We protected it in blister packs, so everything is individually packaged. It has an enteric coating. We are the only DAO with an enteric coating out there. And again, that is extraordinarily important. It means the stomach acid cannot eat it up on the way to the small intestine. And so they have also done research studies in humans for pain and fibromyalgia. They've done studies for migraines and studies for ADHD, and they all saw some level of support. Like not these are not cures, they're not breakthroughs. Like you're going to need a full complement of products to work on these conditions, but it does help them and it's scored as helping them. They also did safety studies. In general, DAO is extraordinarily safe. When you're pregnant, the placenta makes like 1,000x your normal DAO levels. So there's no way you can take too much of it. And also by taking more of it, you don't turn off internal production. So it's a really
Okay.
nice product in that way that it's extraordinarily safe. It's either going to work for you or not work for you. The only thing you have to figure out is your dosage. And so with HistaHarmony, people will often, the studies they did was 2 to 4 of the little tablets per day. And so you should assume that your dosage is somewhere between 2 and 4 per day. There are the people who are on the mast cell activation side. They end up taking sometimes more, like 6 or 8. And then there's other people who are just like histamine intolerant and they've done a lot of work. And so they're just gonna have it when they go out with the girls and take and they know they're gonna have wine and cheese, so they take a few that day. Or they know that they're gonna go to a cookout and have tomato salad, so they take one before that meal.
Yeah.
'Cause it should be hopefully, it becomes something like Tylenol. Like, you have one in your purse, you have one in your medicine cabinet so that, "Hey, I'm gonna go on a car ride up into the mountains to go on a hike, and there's a car full of people here. I don't wanna get car sick." So, you could pop 3 or 4 of them before you're on the car ride, and, like, we get moms writing in talking about how we've saved their family trips or whatever because the kids get all car sick, and they just give them some HistaHarmony, and it can help them with that.
Yeah. And I can't sit in the back of a car. I'm immediately like, "Whoa." So this is so exciting. And in the in the with the DAO that I've used before, you had to take it about they said about 15 minutes prior to ingesting your food or your liquid that's histamine. Do do you have to take the product that way? Does it have to be around the food? Or if you say you go out to eat and you're like, I didn't think I was going to eat that or drink that, and now I'm starting to feel it, can you take it at that point and have it help quell some of the symptoms?
The answer is yes and yes. So with our HistaHarmony, because our DAO is enterically coated, you can take it. The ideal thing, if you're trying to prevent histamine releases from food, is to take it 15 to 20 minutes before your meal, and that will be the ideal way to deal with histamine derived from food. If you forget and you take it at the end of the meal, you're still going to get benefit because it's literally like little Pac-Men looking for histamine. They're literally like Pac-Man just waiting for some histamine. So it's not like histamine. We talked histamines everywhere, right? So whenever
Yep.
the DAO finds the histamine, it's going to eat it up. I actually just had a spirited debate with a reader of my email list because I said, and we do encourage people to take our product in between meals, and she was like, "That is BS. There's no way. It's a gut thing." And I said, I actually, no, it's not. You can draw your blood and find DAO levels. That's how they do the studies. DAO is outside the cell, inside the cell is HNMT. We do not have a study yet proving that our DAO or any DAO orally taken gets into the bloodstream. So I cannot make that claim. But what I can tell you is, anecdotally speaking, we have a ton of people who do get car sick. They have no food in their system, and we tell them to take 3 to 4 of them right before they go on a car ride, and they feel great. We have a ton of people who have headaches and migraines, and when they feel a headache coming on, they'll take 2 to 4 of them and they feel much better, food or no food. And so we also have people who are just generally dealing with mold and nervous system dysregulation. They are struggling. And so we tell them, take it in between meals to lower the histamine burden in your body. Now, is that histamine burden inside the gut from the microbiome? It could be. Is it getting into the blood? It's possible, but we don't know that yet. So with ours, we tell people to play around with the dosages because we have no idea if you're a 2 person a day, if you're a 4 person a day, if you're a 6 person a day. The other thing is, if you know you have sleeping issues, if you know you're one of those people that gets that spike between 8 and 9 p.m., take one at 7:30, 8 o'clock. Or if you
Yeah.
get up in the middle, oh yeah. And if you get up in the middle of the night and you're just like wide awake and you're like, oh, not again.
That's the part that gets me, and I've wondered because sometimes it'll be the heart rate, and I'm like, "Is it blood sugar drop?" Because I used to see that, then I switched berberine to lunch, and I don't get that blood sugar dump anymore. So I'm wondering, is it something histamine
It could be.
that
Yeah.
that is doing that?
Yep. It very much could be. So that's the other thing is you could try to
Mm.
take, if you wake up in the middle of the night, like 3 in the morning, you're pissed off, all your whatever things you do to try to get back to bed aren't working, you could go take a few of them and see if that helps. But a lot of times people don't have to do that if they take one before bed. You're kind of like preloading for that situation.
Okay, okay.
But again, it's the cool thing about DAO and Histamine is an extraordinarily safe product. You are not going to be harming yourself if you take one and nothing happens. And the other thing is, some people want to be the person who only needs one. And unfortunately, you might be the person who needs five. I don't know. You just need to play with it. The cool thing about healthy gut is I've been there. I have been the guy who's running up thousands of dollars on my credit card, working with multiple people online, frustrated, angry, spending all my waking hours trying to figure out my health and going to debt to do it. So I want to make sure that you buy from a company that's not going to hold you back from your healing. So if you buy from Healthy Gut and it doesn't work, number one, all of our customer service people are trained health coaches, and usually they have multiple other certifications. So they can help you work through, did you dose it properly? Did you dose it at the wrong time? And if the answer is just, I want my money back, or you guys together as a team figure out, look, this product's just not right for you, we're happy to give you your money back. And so that you can use that money for something else. Like maybe it's one of our products like Tributyrin X, but maybe it's somebody else's product, and that's totally fine. The thing I want people to do is get empowered around supplements. When they finally get a good product in their hands, they read the back of the box and they're like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do with it. And that's not true. That's legal language for the FDA. That's not health advice. And so being able to understand how to dose these things can be the difference between you going through a fall celebration with some wine and some fish and not having an issue, or avoiding things, avoiding the connection, avoiding the social thing, or being the person who can only eat chicken and carrots or something.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause I love shrimp, and shellfish is the worst when it comes to histamine. And I go out, I'm like, "I want the scallops, but I don't wanna feel like crap. I don't have anything with me, and I'm gonna be all stuffy and miserable." And it really does give you a little bit of a release. I do wanna give props to your customer service, because when tried the Holoimmune, and so I don't know if you know about the genes, the COMT.
A little bit, not a ton.
Some call it the comp. So it breaks down your catecholamines or neurotransmitters. I'm an AA, which is a very slow breakdown. I'm wired. I'm always like my neurotransmitters are always on fire, right? We're the warriors, and the AA is the warriors. And I really have a lot of issues taking supplements, because it could be an additive, it could be the supplement itself that will set me off. Now I'm wondering, geez, because this could some of this be histamine? But you also think about stress. And again, like, how many of us are stressed? Maybe it wasn't that piece of fish that you had for lunch that's affecting you later at night, but it could be the stress and the whole of the day that you had. So I
Or
really think,
or it could be the time of
stress
the
is
month.
it could
I mean,
anything that's creating a reaction in the body is stress.
when estrogen drops, then DAO drops as well and histamine goes up. And so for women, the week before their cycle and starting into their cycle will often have extra PMS or PMIDD symptoms. I'm not saying all of them are histamine related, but a solid proportion of
Plays a part.
people, some of our customers only take it for the 7 days, like right around their cycle. And then you wanna speak about going crazy. I'm not saying that women go crazy in perimenopause, but there is statistically a much higher percent of that happening.
Yeah.
But imagine if you're one day your estrogen's here, the next day it's down. Every time it drops like that in perimenopause, you would expect, among other things, to have a high histamine day. And so perimenopause is maddening for a lot of reasons, but just throw on the heap of issues. Like if you're feeling crazy today and you're in that window of say 38 to 50, it really could have been just because you had an estrogen drop due to perimenopause. And among other things, estrogen's awesome and you don't have it now, but also you have this extra bucket of histamine. So if you're feeling hot, you're feeling itchy, like that's real. It's not imagined and it is happening. And so having products like this on hand to deal with that can really help you go through life.
Now, would the DAO help with that? Because this is interesting. So I use the estradiol patches, and I used to write down in my journal when I would do one. And then, of course, I just started forgetting after that. And so I put one on, and then I go about my week, whatever, because it's supposed to be every 3.5 days that you change your estradiol patch. So it's twice weekly. And we go into bed, and all of a sudden the itching starts. And then I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm hot. And I go, what the heck? Wait a minute. So the itching is histamine. But where is it coming from? I'm going, I don't eat a high histamine diet. I'm very careful about what I eat. How all my leftovers, I do my food prep, and then I put everything into individual containers or baggies right in the freezer. And then he'd write up, I don't defrost, like, I don't do the leftovers. I've really learned a lot of this, right? You figure these
Yeah.
things out. Where before, like, by day 3, you're like, what's wrong with me? And you're like, "Damn leftovers." I had read about the histamine with the estrogen. So that kinda gives me a hint that it's been like I had one time, it's like 8 days. So that my estrogen tanked.
Yeah, I bet if you
Totally
journaled
tanked.
now, I bet the first 2 to 3 days when you put on a new patch, you're, like, feeling awesome, and day 4 is probably when it starts feeling itchier and itchier and itchier.
Yep, yep. So I started noticing that. So that's like my little key when I don't remember is, oh, it's an itch. It'll start in the right shoulder usually, and then as the day goes, so then I've picked up on that. So really, again, we're talking. There's awareness. Pay attention. These are signals our body gives that we don't pay attention to. Like my friend that was itching for, and she was another coach, a DNA coach, and she's, "What's wrong with me? I can't my whole body is itching." And it was like, "Oh, look at what you're eating." And but it's just really funny to kind of put all this stuff together. There was something else you touched on. Let me see. Oh, that I wanted to give you props for your customer service. So I tried the Hollow Immune and I was wide awake. So where I wanted to tie that into the COMT, some of these, even the tributyrin, if you have real high propensity around those genetics like I do, it can be like bing, 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 just that wide awake or a little bit agitation. And I called or I emailed your customer service and one of your coaches, and it's terrible because I can't remember his name right now, but he's let's hop on a call. So we hopped on a call and talked me through everything. And prior to that, we talked about dosing. You have some things on your website about dosing, but it's like as soon as you purchase a product from you, you get an email from your company that says, set up your free consult with your coach so that you know how to dose properly. Because I had to do the little sprinkling of the Hollow Immune, right? And so the Hollow Immune, he said, don't stop taking it. And I switched to the Tributyrin. So it was like, credit for you for this. Let's get you on the right product. Now I'm going to go and have to get on the DAO because now I have to try this. But the customer service is absolutely phenomenal. You guys they work with you. It's not we sold you this and or Amazon will just give you a return. They work with you to understand what's happening with you. Did you try this? Did you look at this? How did this feel? And it's just it's a fantastic experience. So I want to give you guys props for that. And because customer service nowadays, you don't want to be calling and just getting this bot that doesn't tell you shit. That is super frustrating and you just want someone that treats you like a person as an individual, right? Because we're all so different. And that's what you guys do. And so
Well,
kudos,
thank you.
kudos, which is why, your company will continue to grow because you can have a product, but if your service is crap, eh, I don't think it's really going to go as far. But having that customer service and people to work with your customers through that, I think is really one thing that sets you guys apart.
Well, thank
So,
you. Yeah,
I
my team is incredible, and again, I wanted to create a supplement company for people who've been there, and as someone who's reacted to a lot of things, made a lot of questionable choices on dosing and ended up on the toilet all day and things like that. I do know what it's like to go there, and I try to make sure that I, for instance, test our products to the maximum before I ever bring them to market.
yeah.
But what happened with you is very common for people who do have more histamine intolerance and are closer on the mast cell activation component, which is that holoimmune, which is it's an immune retrainer, basically. It's a bunch of dead probiotics and beta glucans, which essentially modify how your immune system reacts to the outside world. It's stimulative in a way because it is directly changing the moment you take it, how your immune system and how your mast cells interact with everything. And so for people who are on that higher histamine intolerance scale or in the mast cell activation, we often do start them with Tributyrin X because it's a really potent mast cell stabilizer. And it really can, in a short order, like I'm talking like 30 to 60 days, it can really take a big dent out of how much histamine you're producing on a daily basis, such that I'm not saying you could have like vinegar coated cheesy fish, but you might be able to start
It's
having
chocolate
citrus.
sauce.
Yeah, with chocolate sauce. Sounds gross, but man, whew.
Oh,
But being able to have chocolate again, or strawberries, or things that are a little bit mid in the histamine scale is possible for some individuals. The farther in the mast cell activation, it's gonna take a lot more things. It will probably take histoharmony as well, maybe. But holoimmune is, I usually say, it's the midway point after you're stable, after you understand your histamine load and you're like, "I'm ready to retrain my body to deal with the world." And that means food sensitivities, that means seasonal allergies. It's the best thing in the world that I've seen for seasonal allergies. Now, it does not replace antihistamines. They're working in totally different pathways, so you could take them together. But as far as allowing your body to experience pollen and experience foods and not react, it literally has bugs in there that do that. And that's a more advanced product. And it's kind of a bummer that you started with the advanced products before you tried the basic level support, because the basic stuff's powerful too. But yeah, tributyrin is butyrate, and butyrate is made by your microbiome every single day. The issue is most of us are not eating enough prebiotics and fiber to make the amount of butyrate we need. And or we already have dysbiosis of the microbiome. And so our butyrate species are not big enough. They're not there. They're not doing what they should be doing. And when that happens, butyrate is actually like magnesium. It's like vitamin C. You need it everywhere. You need it your brain, your heart, your lungs, your bones, your muscles. Like there's a butyrate anything axis. You can use a chat GPT tool, an AI tool, literally type it in, like whatever you're interested in. It could be your lungs, it could be your brain and butyrate. And there's studies out there linking low butyrate to worse conditions in that area. And so what we're finding is that taking exogenous butyrate, and ours is enterically coated, it's a very special 99% proof product out of Spain. Different Spanish scientists on this one, but the Spanish scientists are really good at what they do.
this is just an excuse for you to take a trip over there
Totally, totally.
and
Funny
write it
thing, I
off.
haven't even been there yet, but
Come on, let's be real.
yep. So anyways, our tributyrin works totally different than sodium butyrate. It works totally different than all the tributyrin supplements out there because we are the only product that's enterically coated. Again, when I'm formulating things, remember, I've worked with people where I'm on a call, they have their MD, they have their mom, they have their naturopath, and everyone they've all thrown up their hands and they say, "Steven, we're here. Can you help us?" And I'm like, look at the brain trust on this, and look at this laundry list of things you guys have tried. Okay, let's see what we can do here. I've been, and I am, for a lot of other people in the world, the guy you call when you don't have a lot of options. And what I know about that is when it comes to creating products, I want to create products that work for those folks. In order to do that, I have to think through second and third order consequences that the majority of us don't need to worry about. And that's purity levels. That's delivery system and stomach acid protection. That's the special type of packaging, or all these little details that don't matter for the majority of customers. But for 5 to 10% of people, they really, really matter. And in this case, tributyrin that's protected in a true enteric coated capsule, it really does different things for mast cells. And you could see it in our reviews. You can literally type in like histamine or something in our reviews, and you'll see that people have tried other butyrate products and then they try ours, expecting, just frustrated because they haven't got the results. Also frustrated because we're probably pricier than what they've already tried, because it does cost more to make stuff like this.
Sure.
But anyways, what they find over and over again is that the tributyrin that's enterically coated and super pure ends up penetrating deeper down the small intestine, which means that it's exposing more mast cells to the butyrate. It's helping more mast cells all the way throughout the gut. And so you often see with people a much quicker response to just less histamine production overall and a greater dietary expansion faster on that product. And so those are kind of my 1-2 combo. If I had a 1-2 combo for folks, it would be like Tributyrin X and then Histaharmony, because Tribunal X, you're trying to make less histamine to everything, your microbiome, your nervous system, the pollen in the air, the leaves that are decaying, whatever. DAO and histoharmony is going to go Pac-Man whatever histamine it can find. And then hopefully you will have gone to YouTube. Maybe you've listened to other talks that Susan's done on things around your nervous system, and you're going to do some breath work. You're going to hug yourself every day and tell yourself you're safe. You're going to journal. You're going to go ground. Whatever you're going to do for your nervous system, I don't care, but spend 15 minutes on it a day. It's free. I know it's so frustrating. Trust me. It's fucking frustrating for me even. I forget. Like I'm looking at my vagal trainer on the floor right here and I'm like, oh, I didn't even do you yet. I forgot. So whatever it is, I have a vagal stimulator. I still need to journal every day. If I don't, I get start spinning. The world's crazy. My nervous system is intense and anxious. And if you could spend 15, 20 minutes a day just trying to feel safe, trying to ground yourself, that is going to be extraordinarily helpful. And then the next two products that I would recommend for anybody on the mast cell activation or histamine intolerance scale would be those two products to start with. And you do that with some experimentation on dosing, use our coaches, play around with the foods, and most people can get, I would say, except for the really intense mast cell activation folks, most people can get pretty stable and know, hey, okay, yeah, chocolate is a trigger food, or cheese is a trigger food, and I didn't want it to be, or
Barbecue. Everybody with their triggers, that's smoked food.
yeah, anything that's smoked, anything that's left over.
Big one.
Yep.
Yeah. I went to that, the conference, that like Hack Your Health a year ago down in Austin, and it took forever at the barbecue to get the food to us. It was like 9 o'clock that night,
Oof.
and it was all barbecue. And the only veggie that I saw that was workable for me was they had some collard greens. So I'm asking, and they only give you a little bit of that. They plopped, and I love meat. I love smoked meat, but you want to talk about itching and not sleeping. And they plunked all this meat on there, but we're starving. I couldn't sleep till 4 a.m.
Ugh.
Wide awake. So I love barbecue. I might, plus I have a glutamate issue, and those 2 like to play together as well. They're both excitatory, and the long cooking increases the glutamate, so the glutamate and the histamine. I'm like, you lay there like wide awake and itching, and it makes for a very unpleasant night. But what I will tell you, the in starting your stuff now, the Tributerin I started last week. There was a lot of stuff went down last week, if you remember, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
it was a big week.
like school shooting, Kirk shooting, like all of this, and that stuff like affects me hugely. It was super stressful. Now you're doing vagus nerve, so do you track HRV?
I do. Yep.
Okay, so I was 72 a week ago Sunday.
That's
I know,
great.
and I'm pushing the 60 in a couple weeks here,
That's
so it's
great.
coming. So I'm like, I love seeing this. Do you know my sleep, and I think I probably picked the wrong days to start that, right in the middle of this week of stress, because it was like if you could think of business stress and then that and just other personal, all of it hit me. I couldn't sleep. Waking up every couple of hours or that 3 a.m. and then the brain doesn't shut off. And I've been sleeping like a gem, to where when I hit the 70s with the HRV, my Garmin's something's wrong. I was like, no, now that's the norm. I was 54 today in a week.
That's a big drop.
That's a big drop. I meditate, I do prayer, I do meditation every day, the journaling, all of that. Exercise, like dialed back to CrossFit, no high intensity. But that's how much it impacts. And guess what? When I first started, the itching really died down. I'm going, God, I can eat that and I'm not itching. By the end of this last week, it was so bad again. So it just says to me, like, how much stress really plays a part, because food, spot on. I think chronobiology plays a big part with stress, and nobody talks about. I'm one of the few people talking about that. You could be doing all the right things. If you're doing them at the right time, you're messing with your body systems, right? The hormones are going to be off. So if you're eating a big meal at night as opposed to during the day, you're supposed to be a morning person and you're living as a night owl, major stresses in the body that can again increase that histamine. We just don't think about these things as stress, but they all are. And it is interesting to experience. So usually by 10:30 I'm out. But there were several nights this past week where you said you get that spike, like, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going, "Oh, good, finally, I'm tired at my normal time," and then it hits. I'm getting ready for bed, do my night routine, and I'm like, "What? Now it's 11:15? I don't do well after 11 o'clock." And just how much that really affects. So I wonder if that some of that's like the combination cortisol, histamine, both really stimulatory type
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
obviously that stuff all really matters.
yeah. So I'm gonna try the tributyrin, go back to it again, but let me lay off of anything that could potentially stimulate anything until I get things like get at least some of my night HRV back to normal. It was the night before last. Last was down a little bit low again. We just don't think of these things. And the more if you can track it, you can work with it. If you can measure it, you can work with it. We taught us that in DNA classes. And again, it's creating awareness and what's a step that you can take. So you said you can start with the your DAO, and also, I think if you have genetics, look and see if you've done it. If you're testing, test for the AOC1 genes. They're the ones around DAO, MTHFR, CBS. There's so many different things you can. I know my testing tests for all of that and then some. Also have actual histamine panel that we look at things specifically there, HNMT. So you can see, are you prone genetically? Because again, genetics are not absolutes. So things don't have to express. It's everything that you're talking about with lifestyle and the environment that make that difference with the expression. So you can work with some of the diet. You can use the DAO and the tributyrin. You said start with them together.
It
Or
it
would
depends on how slow you wanna go. Some people are really sensitive, they like sprinkles, try to go really slow. They wanna measure everything. If that's you, then you can start with one of them. Take it every 3 days or so and just slowly ramp up. Other folks are like, "Just have at it, give it all to me, I wanna feel better," and so you can start both of them. Just be aware that if you start too many variables at once and you do have a reaction, it's likely you'll blame the supplements, but it could also be your estrogen drop that day. It could also be that there's like a traumatic event in the social zeitgeist that we all see. There's other things that happen, and it's always
yeah.
the easiest thing to blame the pill. And sometimes it is the pill, but a lot of times it's not the pill, it's something else that's happening.
Now, the tributyrin says to take it with your evening meal. Can you take it earlier if it does affect you?
You could. It's not usually excitatory for most folks. In fact, there's studies in rats and mice that it improves deep sleep. And so we do
Oh,
have a cohort of folks who use like Aura rings and Whoops and things like that. And they report better deep sleep numbers. Now, these are people who have really poor deep sleep, like they're less than 40 minutes a night, and they're seeing like a 10 to 20-minute boost. So the less you have of deep sleep numbers, the more likely you are to see an increase according to our customers. So if you're at like an hour 20 or something of deep sleep, I wouldn't expect your numbers to move much. But so we do have a cohort of folks who take Tributyrin X and DAO right before bed because they're trying to limit histamine and improve deep sleep.
okay. Awesome. Any other tips you have? You have the diet, you have the supplements, the central nervous system regulation. So stress management, people, it's a real thing. It's not just something when we talk out our ass. Everybody's like stress management, but it is very real. We just had a 2 weeks of we had Dr. Nawaz Habib did HRV
Oh,
and
great. Yeah, he's amazing.
yeah. Oh my God, it was one of my favorites. HRV and vagus nerve. And then we had Dr. Ariel Schwartz. She's out of Boulder and she's an expert on polyvagal theory. So we
Oh,
just
that's
did
wonderful.
those back to back, and that was two awesome weeks and two of our highest rated ones. So I think people, like I said, people are looking for answers and they just don't know where to look anymore. And so I think the information that you've put out here has been fantastic. I think it's going to shed a lot of light on things that most people hadn't thought about. I think the last thing is just if, like you said, there's mold can increase the potential for histamine sensitivity, Lyme disease. Lyme is one of the biggest epidemics in the country that you have over 300,000 a year that diagnosed. It took 11 years to diagnose me. 11 years. So how many people don't even know? So that can be a factor. MTHFR, the AOC1 genes, issues with those,
And then your gut health.
and the gut
Literally,
health.
so if I say, "Do you have any gut symptoms?" and you raise your hand, it's likely you can currently have too much histamine as well. And the reason why is because Microbiome dysbiosis typically leans to having species that make more histamine. And most people who have a gut issue have dysbiosis. It's not universal, but it's like a lot of people. And then beyond that, if you have small intestinal inflammation, so that means if you're celiac, if you're non-celiac, gluten sensitive, if you have SIBO, if you have SIFO, candida, anything else, leaky gut, basically you have a range of inflammation. It could be mild inflammation, like really mild. And so maybe you don't have that much DAO production that's been turned down. But if you have celiac disease, where the literal definition is your villi are literally blunted and cut off, those villi are what make the DAO. So even if you have full genetic potential, even if you are doing everything right, but your small intestine isn't healthy enough, you might not be able to make the DAO you need. So I would add into that group of risk factors and that group of not even just risk factors, but actually root causes of histamine related issues is your gut. So the worse your gut is, the more issues you have, the higher your histamine load's gonna be because you're either gonna make too much on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis due to what's living inside of you, or you're unable to create as much DAO enzyme as you can in order to break it down, which just hampers whatever else you're doing. And yeah, gut, look through your environment, look through your house, check for other infections, whether those are bloodborne infections or gut infections. Nervous system is a huge component, which we've hit on a lot. Sounds like those other two podcasts are perfect. And I get it. It's so freaking frustrating. I think I've already said the F word once. That's how much I hate
That's all right.
the
You
nervous
can say it
system.
again. It's one of my favorites.
And that's where things like supplements come in because you can do everything right. And some of us, myself included, we just need to like
Need a
throw
little help.
something at it to actually make an effect. And that's kind
That's
of
when it's a supplement that but like I said, you wanna be taking the things that actually work for you, that you need. They're meant to supplement. They don't take the place of a diet. They don't take the place of exercise. They don't take the place of getting quality sleep or doing the things, right? Doing all the things. They don't take the place, but they supplement it. And that's where it comes in helpful. And you wanna be taking the things you want that your body needs and not a bunch of crap that, let me just throw this in there because it sounds good, but it's really not making a difference. You just want it to. And that again, if we bring it full circle, goes back to mind, body, and consciousness are all systems of systems. Everything's connected. So, people, as I preach every day, what you eat, and I'm going to say, and when, what you think, what you believe, what happens to you. I'm just going to throw in timing, chronobiology, what grows in you, what happened to your grandmother. There are things you can't control, that one, but that's epigenetics. It's passed on. So if you have children, it's what happened to you that's going to be affecting your children. So the more you can take care of you, become aware of your body. Try these things out if you have histamine. Stephen, if someone wants to reach out to healthygut.com, how do they reach you? What's the best place? And we'll have you send me any links that you want so that we can make sure that we have everything in the show notes to get a hold of you. But give it a shout out.
Yeah, yeah. So if you go to healthygut.com, that's where you can find all the information about the products. We have a bunch of socials, like we're on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and YouTube as well. So there's a lot of other podcasts that I have done on histamine. You can also just search my name and histamine or mast cell activation. I've done a lot of talks over the years on this. So if this was, I would say on this one, we went really tactical and practical. If you're like, hey, I don't know if that dude's sciencey enough. Trust me, I'm a super nerd and I've done some really technical talks. You can go find those on either Apple Podcasts or YouTube. And yeah, just reach out to us if you have questions. We are Most of us are highly sensitive individuals. We have a lot of questions ourselves. And so just send us an email, support at Healthy Gut, and happy to try to find out if any of our products are the right product for you and happy to tell you if they're not.
And what I also loved about your company, it was right after I started the autoimmune, you had a webinar that you put on. And I think it was practitioners or clients or your customers that could come on, and it was on autoimmune.
Yeah.
And you gave a fantastic presentation. I was like, this is really good. And then you took about 30 minutes to answer questions live. It was all live. And I thought, again, it's just a way that you're educating people and not just saying, hey, here's my product, go buy it. And I thought that was really fantastic as well. So just really well done. The last thing I want to say,
Thank
I
you.
did search you on YouTube. I'm like, what else could I listen to? So I punched in Steven Wright, and I will tell you that it's the crazy looking comedian, the old guy. He comes up. And
Well,
then
he's
then there
really
was you.
funny.
So you have to put in Steven Wright like healthy gut or Steven Wright histamine. Otherwise, you're gonna get the comedian Steven Wright that comes up. And this place, and I tell people, I'm not the deep dive science person. This podcast is really to be I have deep dive science people, but it's relatable to the everyday person that's not down the rabbit holes yet. That's just looking for some actionable steps and answers to things that are going to make difference in their life, because our lifestyle controls all our genetics. It's
Yep.
95%. And so you fit in perfectly well. I think you did a great job bringing this to our listeners, and I'm so grateful that you joined me today in this conversation. And we'll have to get you back because there's so much more you can go into, but thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Did we miss anything?
No, no, this is a great first chat. We'll have to do it again on another topic, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
Okay, everybody, hit Steven up. Listen to some of his podcasts. Like I said, that's how I found him, and his information's fantastic. And reach out to the healthygut.com, not the healthygut.com. Get out there, make it a great day, and be your most authentic selves. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for tuning into my podcast. If you enjoyed this week's episode, I'd love for you to share it with someone who'd find the information useful. Please leave a review anywhere you listen to podcasts, and it'll help the information get out to others. If you're interested in seeing if we're a great fit to work together, the link is in the show notes below, where you can sign up for a free consultation with me. So go make it a great day and let your authentic self shine.